Stone castles were cold throughout the entire year, not because their inhabitants lacked wealth, but because the very structures that protected them were designed with survival, not comfort, in mind. Thick stone walls absorbed moisture, blocked sunlight, and stored cold air, turning every room into a place where warmth struggled to exist even during milder seasons. Fireplaces, when present, were few in number and extremely inefficient, often built more for symbolism than practicality. Much of the heat they produced escaped directly through wide chimneys, while smoke filled the rooms, stinging the eyes and making breathing uncomfortable long before any real warmth could be felt. Even the wealthiest aristocrats, surrounded by servants and status, slept fully clothed, wrapped in layers of heavy wool, linen, and fur, knowing that removing even a single layer could mean waking up stiff, numb, and shivering. Beds were placed away from windows, not for privacy, but in a desperate attempt to escape freezing drafts that crept through cracks in stone and wood. During winter, the cold became relentless. Ice formed on the inside of castle walls, water bowls froze solid overnight, and breath became visible indoors, even while standing near a struggling fire. Morning routines began not with comfort, but with endurance, as servants and nobles alike faced frozen floors and air that felt sharp in the lungs. Large halls, often imagined as grand and welcoming, were the coldest spaces of all. Their vast ceilings swallowed heat instantly, making fires seem small and almost pointless against the endless stone. Tapestries were hung not for decoration, but as crude insulation, offering minimal relief against the constant chill. Warmth in a castle was temporary and fragile. The moment flames weakened or fuel ran low, cold reclaimed the space without resistance, seeping back into floors, walls, and furniture. Stone chairs, metal objects, and even drinking vessels became painfully cold to the touch, reminding inhabitants that the building itself was never on their side. For aristocrats, cold was not an occasional hardship, but a permanent condition of life. No title, no land, and no power could keep it away. Living in a castle meant accepting that comfort was sacrificed for security, and warmth was something to be endured, not expected. Life inside a medieval castle was defined not only by cold, but by a constant presence of unpleasant smells that no amount of status or wealth could eliminate. There was no plumbing, no sewage system, and no understanding of hygiene as a necessity rather than a luxury. Human waste was disposed of through latrines built directly into the castle walls, where it fell down vertical shafts and accumulated below living spaces. In warm weather, the smell rose back up through corridors and rooms, becoming an unavoidable part of daily life. Food storage was unreliable, and without refrigeration, meat spoiled quickly. Rats, flies, and insects were drawn to kitchens and storerooms, spreading bacteria and decay throughout the castle. Animals were often kept indoors to provide warmth, sharing space with people and adding to the mixture of smoke, waste, damp straw, and unwashed bodies. Floors were covered in rushes or straw, which absorbed spills, food scraps, and filth, and were rarely changed. Bathing was uncommon and physically unpleasant. Water had to be carried by hand, was usually cold, and often reused. Soap was rare, harsh, or non-existent, making true cleanliness nearly impossible. Perfumes and scented oils were not signs of luxury, but tools of survival, used to mask odors rather than eliminate them. Even aristocrats lived surrounded by smells that modern people would find unbearable. Inside a castle, filth was not a sign of neglect, it was simply the reality of life. Rest was difficult to achieve in a medieval castle because sleeping conditions offered little protection from discomfort or disease. Beds were wooden frames topped with straw mattresses that quickly became damp, flattened, and infested with insects. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs were common, making nights restless and exhausting. Rats moved freely through walls and floors, often coming dangerously close to sleeping quarters. The air inside castles was thick with smoke from fireplaces and torches, irritating lungs and weakening immune systems over time. Combined with cold and dampness, this created ideal conditions for illness to spread. Medical knowledge was extremely limited. Doctors were rare, and treatment often relied on herbal remedies, prayers, or dangerous practices such as bloodletting, which frequently worsened the condition. A serious illness could isolate an aristocrat just as much as a peasant. Despite servants and attendants, true care was limited and recovery was uncertain. To fall ill in a castle meant facing pain, fear, and the very real possibility of death, surrounded not by comfort, but by stone walls and flickering candlelight. Aristocrats held power, land, and influence, but their daily lives were far removed from modern ideas of luxury and ease. Titles brought responsibility and expectation, not comfort or relaxation. Meals were repetitive and practical. Bread was coarse, meat heavily salted, and vegetables seasonal and limited. Spices were used not for flavor, but to mask spoilage. Privacy was almost non-existent. Servants slept nearby, guards stood watch, and personal space was a rare privilege. Clothing was heavy, restrictive, and uncomfortable, designed to signal status rather than provide warmth or flexibility. Jewelry was worn as a display of power, even when it added physical discomfort. Castles were symbols of authority, built to intimidate enemies and control territory. They were never intended to be warm, peaceful homes. For aristocrats, life was a constant negotiation between power and discomfort, where security came at the cost of personal well-being. To live like a medieval aristocrat was to endure conditions that modern people would find nearly unlivable. Cold, filth, illness, and discomfort were not occasional hardships, but permanent features of everyday life. The romantic image of castle living was created centuries later, shaped by art, literature, and nostalgia rather than lived experience. Paintings softened reality, stories removed suffering, and history became fantasy. In truth, castles were places of endurance, not enjoyment. They offered protection from enemies, but little relief from the environment itself. Stone walls did not provide comfort, they demanded resilience. So when we imagine life behind castle walls, it's worth asking whether we admire the past for what it truly was, or for what we wish it had been. Because living in a medieval castle was not about luxury, it was about survival.